Welcome to That's What She Said, where we'll spill the tea on women empowerment in the Great Lakes Bay region with your host, Christiana Malcara.
Hi, and welcome to another episode of That's What She Said with Christiana Malcara. That's me. If you haven't tuned in before, I'm Christiana Malcara, and I host a show called That's What She Said. Yeah, isn't that really fun? Like, the whole idea is all about women empowerment. Our cool little tagline is spilling the tea on women empowerment, because when you spill the tea, it just goes everywhere. It makes a mess. It drips all over. And that's what we want to do. We want to spread like spilled tea and empower women and the community members of the Great Lakes Bay region and beyond. So you can tune in on air on Sundays, 6 o'clock. 100.5 and 790 here live, Facebook, and on the internet, 1:30 on Thursdays, and then anywhere and everywhere you would like on Spotify 24/7. So when you're doing those dishes, picking up the kids, or folding the laundry, I'm here. So, as you know, on Thursdays, I kind of reflect. That's where my weekly reset is on Thursdays. It's odd. I have a weird schedule. It's okay. And this morning I was kind of like, all right, how did this week go? What did we do? And I'm like, whoa, my mind's flooding with all these things. And instantly I was hit with this idea that I got a couple phone calls. I know, who does that anymore, right? I got a couple phone calls, and they were like, hey, I was talking about you, and this came up, and then this other person knew you. And someone else called me and was like, hey, I mentioned your name in this meeting. And the really cool thing is, maybe 10 years ago when someone was talking about me, it wasn't a good thing. I'm just kidding. But what it was the people that had contacted me and said, I spoke your name in a room that you were not in. And that was an honor for me. I was like, thank you. Thank you for making me present somewhere that I'm not, in a positive way and in an empowering way. And when I hung up, I had to push the button and hang up. It wasn't a text. I had to hang up, and I'm like, wow, that was really nice. That was kind. And you don't know who else is in the room. You don't know whose name whose ears your name landed on. But the point that I'm making is to be kind and to share knowledge. And if you truly believe in something or someone, let's spill the tea on it. Let's just spread our wings and share information, share in a network, share in a community, so we can all grow and thrive together. And that is exactly what this woman does right next to me. She's really cool, guys. Like, I mean, I'm a little biased because she's like kind of my friend too, but today we have on air Miss Andrea Paschall. Hello.
Hello. Thank you for having me.
Thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
I'm honored to be called a friend.
Well, I talk about you all the time. All good things.
Oh,
All good things.
Same. It's like, I was thinking about that to say that when I first came on here was, your name was mentioned to me long before I met you, right? So your name is always being mentioned in rooms, before you're there. So your reputation precedes itself for sure. And I was honored to meet you, right? So when I first met you, I was like, oh my gosh, like, I support what you do.
Thank you. Thank you.
Because it's pretty amazing, right? So I immediately started, supporting you and joining you in your endeavors and at LEAD, and thought that was really cool, and how you're leading in this community. So
I appreciate
very, very
that.
inspired by that.
Well, you are equally doing some really awesome things too.
Thank you.
How would the community know you? What is it that you do around town?
Well, recently I ran for office, which I did lose my candidacy, or my seat there, but I'm happy for that. A lot of people say, oh, I'm so sorry that you lost the race, and I'm along for the ride. If I won, I would have taken that with great stride, and the same with losing. It's just not my time. And so I was already dedicated. The reason why you run is to be a difference in your community, or at least make a change, or be a representative for your community. And so I was dedicated to really doing that. And so win, lose, or draw, that's what I said. I don't know if I scared some people away by saying, I'm not going anywhere. Just kind of changing what we're doing, right? And so what does it mean to be actively involved? And I make myself available in most ridiculous ways. I work a full-time career, but I volunteer. So if there's something that I can do, whether it's putting away chairs and tables, or making an art project for somebody, or showing up to open doors, whatever it takes, right? And so most people would probably know me from just kind of sticking my nose into different things and trying to be a volunteer as often as I can. And I also have a small little following from my art page. So I'm pretty proud of that.
You are incredibly dynamic.
Thank you.
You're incredibly dynamic. We just talked about, you just mentioned community service, politics, art. Whoa. So where did that all start? Tell us something about you from the beginning here.
Ooh, start from the beginning. Well, I think it was when I got, was really sick and was really just trying to be a working mom. And once you get well, I just didn't want to sit still anymore. And then you realize, like, hey, wait a minute, I have the opportunity to give back. I have, the means, the time, the energy. My kids are grown now, so I'm no longer that PTO mom, because that's where a lot of my time was spent, right? Was at school. And so again, how do you give back? And the most thing I can give is my time. Yeah, I give a little bit of money here and there where I can, for sure. But your time, I think I try to empower women and tell people in general that your time is like so valuable. When I was a working mom and started becoming a career mom, I took off in trucking, and they really took a leap on me.
Okay, trucking?
Yes.
Like a truck.
Like semi-trucks.
Like semi-truck. Okay.
Absolutely.
What did that industry look like? Like, what was your role in that industry?
Oh my goodness. Let me tell you about my interview.
Yeah.
This will really shore up the whole,
okay,
like how this broached, right? So
my listeners love a good story. So please share.
I started off in makeup years and years ago, 25 years ago. Right. And I was just simply looking for a job. I mean, you're like, 25 years ago, Andrea, how long are we going to go back?
Okay. Pause. Cosmetic makeup.
Cosmetic makeup.
Okay. So 25 years ago, cosmetic makeup, you're like, this is my niche. This is where I need to be. Okay.
No.
Oh.
No. I needed money.
Okay.
I needed a job.
Okay.
And my cousin was like, Merle Norman is hiring. I'm like, who and what? She's like, yeah, they do makeup. I'm like, I wear mauve makeup like once on a blue moon. What are you talking about makeup? They're like, she'll teach you everything you need to know. So I was like, desperate times call for desperate measures. And I went in there, and sure enough, they train you. They teach you everything that you need to know. And I became their number one sales girl, not because of makeup, but because of skincare. Mm. And so I could, really climb the ranks that way. And years, fast forward years and years, and I go to college, and I think, oh, I'm going to get a good job, and the world is my oyster. And well, it turns out that you can't get a job in my field unless I moved across state. At the time, my husband owned a small business. So
what was your field?
Medical insurance, health information technology.
Okay.
Yeah.
What year was this?
Way left field. Yeah. 2009 is when I graduated.
Okay.
So married with kids, graduated from college, looking for a job, not finding anything. Called my old boss, Merle Norman, and was like, hey, can you take me back? With your sales record? Absolutely. We'll take you back right now. When can you start? Tomorrow? So started there, worked at Merle Norman, and worked a second job at as assistant manager at the icing. So I was like killing myself, working 12 hours, a day.
You spent a lot of time in the mall.
You have no idea how many times you just want to
food court food.
Oh my! Or just turn the radio off, or the same constant music over and over. Yeah, Christmas time.
I'm there. I'm having flashbacks.
Yeah. And he's like, so why don't you like Christmas music? I'm like, listen, work retail for a few years
in the mall.
In the mall, you might change your mind. So I got heads up that we were closing in the mall. Merle Norman was, had hit its end of its road, and I was lucky enough that she gave me the heads up. And my friend was like, "Hey, we're hiring over here at Stevens." And I was like, "What Stevens?" Here I am again.
Yeah. Kind of shooting in the dark here. Like,
Shooting in
what's
the
going
dark.
on?
Yeah, again, desperate times, right? And I go in there and I apply, and I'm sitting in the desk with the VP of operations. Hey,
Mhm.
Jim, and love him to death, by the way. And the manager of operations, Ken, the VP of operations looks at my application. He goes, "So makeup?" I went, "Yeah."
Oh,
Merle Norman, huh? And I went, "Yeah." And he goes, "Do you know what we do here?"
oh, wow. Okay. How did that make you feel? Were you like imposter syndrome? Like, oh, you're right. I need to walk away. Or were you like, I'm your girl still? Like, what did that look like for you?
Yeah, pretty much. Like,
A little bit of both.
well, and here's what he literally said. He goes, "What are you doing here?"
Mm.
He goes, "What do you want? What do you want to do?" And I said, "I want to stay at a place for a really long time, and I want to make a difference, and I want to grow within that, or within that organization." That's literally what I said. And he goes, "All right, you're hired."
Dang.
Yeah. And he looked at operations manager and he was like, "What do you think?" And he was like, like,
I guess, boss.
yeah, that's one hell of a
Wow.
crapshoot,
They
like
took a leap of faith on you.
they did. And within a couple of years, I was doing really great as a dispatcher, moved laterally into electronic logs, and I developed that department, helped them pass a federal audit, made them a mobile app, developed a mobile app, sold them the mobile app, moved on, was recruited into trucking technology, and kind of set the course for my career. Yeah.
Wow.
Yeah. So now I'm in artificial intelligence and cameras, and I still work in trucking, primarily fleets, right?
And we started out with makeup.
Yeah. What a leap, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay. So what was one of the big takeaways from that spectrum of work that you're like would pass along as a piece of advice?
Never think that you're too small or that you're too stupid or that you don't have the skills. When they came to me and said, "Hey, Drake, we had already started developing the training program, restructuring some things for our truck drivers when I was at Stevens in the safety department." And, he said, "Hey, Drake, can you make an app?" I said, "I mean, like, I've never done that, but never say no, because you don't know what you can't do unless you really try." And I was like, "I don't know." And he's like, "I think you can. I think you can." And that was the driver recruiter at the time. And he was like, "I think you can." He's like, "Just give it a shot." And so I did some research. I'm staying up late at night, just trying to see what I can figure out. And sure enough, I developed the app.
Okay. So again, to this whole stretch of line of work,
Yeah.
when you're bouncing around back and forth like this,
Yeah.
I'm sure there's some mental instability, like,
What am I doing?
what am I doing? But it also sounds like a story of strength in a way too. How did you mentally kind of jumble through that with kids and a husband, and he owns a business, and there's a lot of moving components here.
Yeah. I think there's a lot more sacrifice that we don't talk about, right? And the things that you kind of push aside or the things that you ignore in order to try to achieve certain things. So, truth be told, I sacrificed quite a bit during that time, I developed a department. We passed a federal audit. I developed the app. It was a lot of work. And looking back, it was a lot more sacrifice than I got out of that. I mean, like the looking back as far as like the reward of saying that, yes, I can claim these things as triumphs. That's what I take away from it now. Looking back, I sacrificed a lot of time for my kids. Truth be told, I was stressed out quite a bit. But we were managing. It was just one of those things where we were in survival mode and we were doing what it took. And if that meant making the mobile app to make me successful at work or to make the driver successful or to give the drivers what they needed. And I think that's also too, like, I learned to not sacrifice myself, my family for the sake of others, for what they need, right? And so you create boundaries, and you learn that it's not worth, sometimes it's not worth that sacrifice. Yes, I was able to achieve quite a bit. Yes, I'm able to claim those accolades now. It was a short sacrifice. So look at now when I talk to my kids, that they're older, they're like, yeah, it's okay. Like, it's okay. We're fine.
Like in the grand scheme of things,
Yeah.
now it's okay.
It's okay. We're fine. Like, it was a little bit of time. He's like, the kids say it's more time in my mind than it is to them.
Oh,
right.
That's interesting.
Right.
The perspective there is really interesting.
For me, so it was more time for, I came from a state being a stay-at-home mom for like a couple of years too. So I think it was that dichotomy of like, hey, wait a minute, I'm working now, and then I'm really, really working, right? Most importantly, what I took away was I was so stressed. That's what my kids noticed.
Oh.
They noticed the stress.
Okay. All right. There's about 1,000, okay, maybe like 11 questions floating in my head right now.
Yeah.
So let me get a couple of them out. So you're saying that there was a fight or flight period.
Oh, yeah.
Who did you lean on the most during that time?
My husband.
Is
1,000%.
In what ways?
Every way. From calling him in panic saying, I don't know if I'm going to be able to make it through the day. Like, I feel like I'm over water, to staying up late and trying to finish projects or get in a deadline. And here's the thing. These were made up deadlines on my own timeline. So he's have to talk me off of the ledge constantly.
That you built.
That I built. I stressed myself out. These were things that I put upon myself, right? All in the sake of trying to help or make things better.
Do you think women do that often?
Yes. Yes. And we don't know how to pull back. And I think too, like at the time when I was listening to him and he's saying, you're sacrificing so much or you're giving so much. And he was helping me. He was enabling me.
Yeah.
Right. For the sake of, helping me.
Uh-huh.
But he was also saying, hey, you're really stressed out. Why don't you, pull back a little bit? It's okay. It's okay if you take time off. He was giving me permission. And I was just like, no, we've got to muster through. And I had to listen to him and really take that advice.
Why do you feel like I got to muster through?
I think it came from that hard work perspective, the survival of thinking, I've got to prove myself, or, again, coming from just kind of working my way up from the bottom always, I mean, you got to think I came from makeup and I worked my way all the way up to that point. And I'm like, okay, well, I've got to keep going. Right. And I had already earned my spot by that point.
So we're sitting in our spot that you've already earned, and you're still trying to build yourself up.
Myself.
In your mind.
Yep.
But you're already there.
But you don't realize that. Right. So that's a growing process that I had gone through professionally as well.
So let's talk about the kids and you and that dynamic while you're in this fight or flight. So I have little ones, and it's always one of those things where it's like, Mom, you came home late yesterday. It's like, yeah, I did. So then, I'm like filled with guilt. But then the next day, they're totally fine.
Yeah.
So this is normal?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That's the guilt that I was riddled with, that I was riding with, right? And you got to let it go.
Okay.
And they more like hearing about my successes as well. They like the accolades just as much as I do.
Mom did that.
Right. And it feels like, when you share that with them, they also feel like they put in that work and that time too, because they did.
So when you go back and ask them, hey, I remember those few years where like I was super stressed out. Like, do they remember you being stressed out?
I don't know about now, but that was the reason why I brought it up was they brought it up. My youngest son brought it up to me. I remember I didn't have an office yet. So I was working at home when I started working in technology. And I had my office in the front living room. He comes home from school, and the first thing he says is, I really like your new your new job, Mom. And I said, you do? And I says, it's because I'm home. And he goes, no, you're less stressed. You're just happier.
Wow.
That hit me hard.
I bet that did.
Yeah.
How old is he? Can you share?
Now he's 20.
Okay.
Back then he was, I think, 8, maybe 9.
So they know.
Oh gosh, yeah, they know. Big time.
So you are from what I'm seeing here, and what I kind of know her, guys. You're a really driven woman.
Yeah.
What fuels that fire?
Not ever wanting to sit down, not ever wanting to sit still. When you have been sick for a long time and you can't move and you really want to move and you finally can move, I think there's just nothing that's going to stop me now. I know I don't want to stop moving.
So it's a mindset.
It's a mindset, and I think maybe combating getting old.
Guys, it must be the skincare, because I know you can't see her. She's absolutely gorgeous. There's no wrinkles, no old here anywhere.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
But
It's
I
the
tell people, yeah,
skincare.
I am old. I tell people that and he's like, oh no, you're not old. I'm like, well, I mean, I'm older than I look. Thank God.
Shout out to Merle Normans.
Right?
So this driven mentality, has that created ripple effect in your children?
Tremendously.
How so?
My oldest definitely is like you could say mini me, but only in a term, because he is 6'5". So he towers over me, but very driven in that way too, right? I mean, he's in the Army and he wants more and more. So
Wow. Okay. So a driven personality, a go-getter, starting from the bottom, now we're here mentality.
oh yeah.
What is a takeaway that you would pass along to a woman who is listening right now and is like, I'm drowning, but I don't have that someone like your husband in that instance to lean on, to say, you got it, or okay, it's okay to take a break. Like, what would that look like? And what piece of advice would you pass along to that woman?
I say take a break. Give, like you do, you take one day out of your week to really just take stock in your life, take stock in your week. One of the things I've learned is time is real, and not only is your time limited, right, on how much time you have in one day, but how valuable it is. So really take stock in where you're placing your time. Where is your value in that time that you're spending? So reconsider your time.
Reconsider your time.
Yeah,
So is that more or less prioritizing what's more important to you?
absolutely. Finding value in what you're spending time with. And then, when you find value where you're spending time, so you say, okay, I'm spending an hour here, really spending time on what's my week like, or what does my calendar look like, or should I really be doing these types of things with my life? Should I be spending an hour or 2 hours of my life looking at emails every day? Should I let my emails be running my life? No, don't ever let your emails run your life.
Don't let your emails run your life,
No,
ladies.
I literally told that to a customer today. I'm like, he's like, did you see my email today? I'm like, no, I am task oriented today. I have things I need to get done. And so, yes, my emails are on that list, but my emails are not running my life. So, again, to prioritize what you need to do, take stock in what you spend time with.
How do you prioritize those things? Is it like a calendar that you're looking at, or writing things down, or a to-do list?
Both.
Both. Okay.
Absolutely both.
So make a to-do list.
Make a to-do list. Prioritize.
Prioritize.
You're going to find out how much time you really have left over in your day to really accomplish some of the things that maybe you've been really wanting to and putting off. And when you realize how much time that you spend sleeping and spending time on your phone and social media,
it adds up.
It really adds up.
It really adds up. So for our listeners out there, we will be right back. We are here with Andrea Paschall. And when we come back, we're going to dive in a little bit deeper into her personal life, and also being a military mom. That sounds interesting.
That's What She Said with Christiana Malcara is back. Now let's spill the tea.
And we're back to the second segment, the second half of this episode with the wonderful Andrea Paschall. And we are talking about, we covered so much. At the end of that last segment, we were talking about prioritizing our time. We have to sleep, right? We sleep, we eat, we maintain the things that we have. We scroll on our phone. I think it's called doom scrolling, right? We doom scroll. We check our emails. We communicate with people as best we can. Our whole day is made up of communication. But how do we prioritize that? And if you didn't get those tips and you're on Spotify, go back. If you're on air, you can find it later on Facebook. So my name is Christiana Malcara, and you are tuning in to the second half of That's What She Said here on 100.5 and 790 with WSGW. And we are going to talk about being a military mom. That's hard. How does that feel? What is that like? What branches your child in? Tell us things.
Okay, so he is 25. He's 6'5". He was the tallest soldier in his unit. He's currently technically kind of retired, but they have when a soldier retires, they technically have him on retainer for another additional 4 years, so they can basically call him back. So he has the opportunity to go back, become active or whatever, and change his mind. So he's kind of in that phase right now. So he's not reporting. He's National Guard, Army National Guard. So he has gone to lots of training. He hasn't gone and been shipped off anywhere, thank God. But we have had lots of threats, of being shipped off, or, potential calls for being shipped off. So it's been, I grew up in an Army home, and, it's one of those things where you're really prideful and proud of them. But in the same sense, it's absolutely terrifying at the sacrifice that they could be making. And when he went off to boot camp, I think that was really the hardest part for me, because everybody's like, well, he's not going to war. I'm like, no, he's not going to war. And it's like, well, it's just like him going off to college. I said, no, that's not the same at all. When you're done with college, you have the chance to go off and get a career and go to work. When you're done with base camp, you could be shipped off to lose your life. It's not really the same.
That's a perspective. Right. Yeah.
So the growth period within, 6 months is to take you from your average civilian and turning you into somebody who is willing to sacrifice their life for our country. And that is really, in that 6-month period, is really quite a monumental growth, right? And that I really took that into account. So watching him grow from, my little baby to this very mature killing machine was really quite the transformation for a mother to watch. But it was also very, very amazing to see as well. And, he says, are you still going to be happy with me? I said, I'm going to always be happy with you. I'll be here for you on the other side. You'll just be a different version. And I will embrace you and love you in that new version.
Wow.
Yeah. It's really quite the transformation to watch. So I think that was, for me, it was the weight of it all, the sacrifice, knowing that he's, he could potentially lose his life in a war. He could be shipped off. That you never know. Every time he goes off somewhere, it could be the last time you see him. And so that's just kind of something you kind of live with, I guess.
That is an interesting balance of, being in that state of worry and also proud. That's an interesting balance. I hadn't thought of it that way. So you said you came from a military family. What do you mean by that?
Well, my grandfather was Army. My uncle was Army. When I was first born, I came home to a single mom, and so she took me home to her family, which was my uncles and my grandfather. And so we had a lot of, the memorabilia and, the guns in the house.
So it's always been part of your lifestyle.
Oh yeah.
So did you think that one of your children would end up being in the military?
I kind of had a feeling.
Okay.
I almost became a police officer when I was pregnant with him. I know.
Okay.
I had always really wanted to become a police officer.
You're throwing a lot of curveballs at me
I
in this interview
know.
today.
And then that didn't work out.
Okay.
I was going to go into the cadet program, and that was closed right after I had applied. And so I'd always kind of had a feeling something like that, because it was in my blood, And when that didn't work out, I was like, oh, there was a reason, right? God has a reason why he doesn't put you in certain places. And when he was little, he had talked about becoming a police officer. And I was like,
Oh,
well,
cute.
of course.
Yeah.
And, I encouraged that a lot, maybe. And he started mentioning military pretty much early on.
Okay.
So I really knew he had an eye for it.
So you mentioned that there's a faith component to decision making.
Oh, yeah.
And in our last segment, you had mentioned that there was illness in your life.
Mhm.
And can you tell us about those two concepts together and then how that kind of propelled you to where you're at?
I didn't have a lot of faith when I was sick. My faith was not nearly as strong as it is now. Did it get me through? Absolutely. The Lord was always looking out for me long before I ever embraced and realized that he was there for me. And that before I embraced him, I just never realized it. And so I was sick for a really long time. And then of course, when I got married and after I had kids, it really, really took a toll. You'll see a lot of weight gain in some of the pictures that I share. That's part of the reason why I gained some of that weight. It was a lot of hormonal issues. I had endometriosis in kind of some of the worst ways possible.
Endometriosis.
That's right.
What is that for our listeners that do not know?
So endometriosis is actually kind of one of those foreign diseases that they've been studying. They have several theories on it, but they really don't know the true cause of it. And they actually don't have a cure for it either. In very rare cases, it can actually attack the brain and it can kill the patient. The blood overall turns into what they call endometrial blood, which becomes basically hormone-enriched blood, and it turns the blood into tacky-like blood, and that causes the organs to adhere to each other or become attached to each other. And so when the cycle, right, the hormonal cycle starts, the blood starts to become more enriched. That blood becomes more thick and taffy-like. The organs start to pull towards each other. That causes a lot of extra discomfort. Pain is associated with that. Organs become moved because that taffy-like blood starts to pull the organs in other areas. They also cause lesions. So there's lesions on the organs, lesions, all throughout the body. And again, this will spread to different organs. So it will start with the female reproductive system, and then it will spread outwards onto other organs.
And this time period where you were ill, were you in the hospital? Were you in home? How?
So which is very strange. Like I said, it's a mystery disease. So some women don't even know they have it.
Oh.
It's a complete mystery. Like, so women will try to get pregnant or, have a baby, and then they simply can't get pregnant. They go in there and you can't find it with an ultrasound. There's no testing that you can be done externally. Sometimes then the doctor will go in there, they'll do an exploratory surgery or DNC, and then they'll realize, oh yeah, you have endometriosis. It's an overgrowth of tissue inside of the uterus. And again, the blood is what that pools on the outside of the uterus is typically what causes the excess illness with other patients. So every patient is completely different. Other patients like myself definitely know, right? You have all the high pain, heavy flow, and a myriad of other things. I was passing out with my periods. I could never get out of bed. So it was like a 2-week cycle. And then I was off for about a week and then right back into the same cycle of in bed on heavy meds, passing out. We make a joke now, like the husband would crack the door, like throw a pill at me and then like slam the door shut.
What?
So it's like, you're in pain, you're highly heavy hormonal, so you're not the
nicest person to be around.
Yeah, a lot of pain. So,
everything's very amplified. It sounds like it's very amplified and longer term.
Yeah.
And a lot of times you're saying this can be misdiagnosed or missed completely.
Absolutely.
This is
Absolutely.
interesting.
Mhm.
Okay. So for listeners, I'll have to research this a little bit more and add some information in the comments because I think this is great knowledge to know, especially for our women listeners.
Yeah. So
Because,
I
yeah.
participated in a couple of studies for U of M in hopes to, to find some answers before I had my surgery and had everything removed. And that is really the ultimate cure, is because once you remove those hormones, right, and you don't have anything producing that excessive endometrial blood, it tends to go away. Now, I still have my thyroids. You can still technically grow it. The chances of it are very, very low.
Okay. And this portion, this chapter of your life was the fuel to push you forward.
I think so. Once I got well, I think it was just like, I got well, I lost weight. Once I started moving, I literally had a moment where I jumped and I went, I've never jumped that far or that high. And I was just like, I think it was literally that physical movement of realizing like I'm in a different body, right? I'm in a different phase of my life. It was just like all these things. And I'm like, I'm never going to stop. And we never did.
Your body changed, the phase of your life changed. We're closing a chapter. What did that look like for you mentally?
Huh. When we talk about that fight or flight mode, when we got into the career, I was still coming from that survival of getting well into excited about life and excited about accomplishing things and needing a job.
Mhm. The need,
So
the
it's like,
excitement, the want.
yeah, right. And it was like this perfect storm of thrusting me into all of these things, right? And then also kind of discovering like, I know I'm artistic. I know I like to do certain things. I know I like computers. I'm a jack of all trades, master of none, but still better than a master of one. We always forget that second part.
This is true. This is true. And I've always liked that quote. I feel like I could relate a little here. Okay.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay.
And so my husband, he was just like, I don't think I can stop you. Like, you just like, and then when the kid moved out, my oldest moved out, then I had an extra room.
Oh, man. Possibilities are endless now. So what do we have in the extra room?
That's where everything really exploded, right? So now we're doing TikToks, we're doing YouTubes, we're doing crafting. We've got the craft page. We're selling products. We're rocking and rolling. The whole craft room is banging and rocking and rolling.
And then you have an office
That's
where
in the craft room. Yeah.
Okay.
Everything's in one room.
How important is it for a woman to have their own space like that?
I didn't realize that, like that she shed thing, that needs to be like a standard.
That's real. I'll just tell you guys, I don't have a space like that. The kids run everything.
I know. And
Mine are little.
yeah. And I used to live out of box when my kids were little. Everybody's like, so how was your craft room? Like, was it like phenomenal? When I had a craft box, and I was lucky that I could scrape together some of the things to make a school craft project. It was a trip to Michael's every single time. And yeah, so now that I'm older, I have the space. And when he moved out, I said, are you sure you're not moving back home? Because I'm going to take your room. And he was like, no, I'm sure. And I'm like, are you sure?
Did he come back?
No, he didn't. But as soon as
Okay.
he realized like how much I had really moved in, he was like,
You really don't
really?
want me back.
Yeah. He's like, really?
So having a space in your home, that's yours to claim as your own, right?
Yeah.
That has to be a great feeling, and I'm kind of jealous here. So you this creative aspect. So we talked about the app building and this AI portion of your life, but let's talk about being creative, being a creative person, because we're talking about left and right side brain here. And girlfriend, you got both of them working for you.
Thank you.
So, being a creative person, how did that come about?
My biological father was a muralist and local artist here. So he was always doing something artistic around town or, just in his own time. And my mother is extremely talented and extremely crafty and creative. And so, of course, she has been a huge catalyst for my creativity. And I think I just got, again, being home. If you're home long enough, I mean, I started out with coloring, honestly, just to keep it going,
adult
right?
coloring books it was a fad for a while.
Yeah.
Like people had, I mean, they still exist. So you started coloring.
I started coloring, getting back into it because I was always artistic as a kid. Again, as an adult, you think, what am I going to do with that, right? Like, there's no space in my life at all. And again, except to do school crafts or like really break it out then though. Like we really nailed some school crafts. I'm telling you, some school projects were rocking.
Your poster boards were the best.
Oh my gosh, you were phenomenal. 3D projects, what do they call those little dioramas?
Oh yeah.
Love dioramas.
Yeah. Kids got all A's. Her kids got all A's in our class.
Yeah.
All we need to say.
We go all out. But so yeah, then it was just like, okay, I need time by myself. We started, I needed to continue making extra money. I had accrued a debt. I had accrued debt, period. I had gotten myself out of debt. So always having that extra income or supplemental income was always imperative for me. And I never really let go of makeup. I was still doing makeup on the side. I was still doing brides. I was still doing bridal parties. Friends were still calling me, mothers of brides. So I was still booked for makeup solid when I was in trucking. Then when I started traveling for technology, when I got into the technology side, I had to do something that was more isolated, more solitary, because I was on the road more often than not. So I was traveling, anywhere from Tuesday to Thursday or Monday to Friday. And that didn't really put me with a lot of clientele.
So okay. So you said a couple of things here. You picked up things to make you have time by yourself.
Yes.
Like you created your own by yourself time.
Yes.
Why?
To recoup my sanity. I'm the only girl in my house. I think everybody needs to have that, no matter what you are, right? Whether if you're 2 boys or whatever in the house, or to recoup my sanity, to also de-stress. And art became that major de-stressor. And then it became where I was producing out of stress. And I was like, oh my gosh, I have a lot of things. Like, what am I going to do with all these things? And I started storing them at first. And then I started running out of space to store them. And George was like, my husband was like, you really got to get rid of some of the stuff. And so I started selling some of my crafts. And that kind of just, and like one thing always kind of ties to another, right? So if you're using one medium and you use another medium, then that one medium takes you into another corner, right?
We're going to have to take a tour of this craft room. I feel like it's full of stuff.
It is.
I feel like there's a lot happening here.
There is. There's clay, there's paint, there's resin, there's cups, there's, you name it. I mean, if you walked in there and you were like, hey, Dre, what can't I make? You probably couldn't knit or sew. Okay, you probably could sew, but you probably couldn't knit anything.
What is the quote again? You said, Jack of all trades, master of none. What's that last line?
But still better than a master of one.
There we go. All right. We're going to, guys, this is going to end up on a coffee mug one day soon. So you're selling these products that you've made because you're running out of room. Your husband's like, hey, you got to get rid of some of this stuff.
Yeah.
But you mentioned that you had debt. You cleared the debt, but you always wanted to have like some savings, some extra money, some rebound money, some comfort zone money. Let's talk about that. We've had a guest on before talking about finances and women in finances, particularly being, knowledgeable and to not get into the position where you're in debt in the first place. What was that journey for you?
Well, I came into my marriage really financially ignorant, not really, I was surviving, right? I was a single mom. I was living on assistance, and I really just went to him and said, I don't know a lot about this stuff. Like, I'm open. I'm open to learning. I'm open to, God forbid, say it, budgeting, even though I'm going to hate it.
Yuck.
And I don't want to do it.
Yep.
But I knew that there was financial relief on the other side of really committing to that. and really talking to it and being vulnerable to that, and really exposing myself to my partner about what I was accruing and what I was dealing with, and him saying, okay, we can deal with that. We can manage that. And eventually just paying that off and really committing to that, and committing to our dreams and committing to larger dreams together, right? What do we see for our family? Where do we see ourselves in retirement? Where do we see when our kids are married and our grandkids are coming? And so those are things that we really started to plan for. And those were things that were really exciting to me.
Was that scary to kind of show them all your cards and be like, hey, and I mean cards like credit cards, like, hey, look what I got.
Oh yeah.
How did that feel?
Very vulnerable, very scary. And like when I said the words, like, I have debt, and I was just like, the words like filled my mouth, and I was like, oh my God,
I just told him my secret.
and it's real.
It's real.
It's real.
I'm not lying. Please love me.
Right.
Still.
And he was like, well, how much? And I'm like, I don't know.
I don't know. You answered with, I don't
I
know.
mean, like, I have an idea. I think I was more
Okay.
afraid to answer.
Yeah.
Right. Like I had a
yeah.
ballpark.
Mhm.
And he was like, well, we probably should get a spreadsheet together. And I'm like, spreadsheet?
Again,
Oh.
yuck. I know. My husband's a spreadsheet guy. But you know, those guys are important.
Oh my gosh.
Yeah. Okay. So now we are here at the end.
Life-changing.
Yeah. Life-changing.
Life-changing.
So now we're here. And how important is it to you to have that comfort zone, that extra, extra money in your bank account that makes you feel comfortable?
What's that like?
Yeah. Is it like, what does it feel like? Is that like a sense of relief, or is it something like now it's just natural, like, oh, I need to have that cushion? And how important is that for other women to learn about?
For me, it recently fluctuated. I lost my job. I got laid off from, I got recruited from that one position to the one place. They laid me off. They had actually a massive layoff. It was really quite
Something.
It was newsworthy. They laid off. What was it? It's like 35% of their workforce.
Oh,
yeah, it was quite a bit. It made news. Anyway, when I got laid off, yeah, we dipped into a lot of that. I went back into debt.
I bet that felt good.
It did. And to have that cushion, right?
Yeah, it felt good that you had that.
We did. And to
Okay.
watch that cushion dwindle was also like, dear Lord. And now my faith is really strong. And I'm like, okay, Lord,
Mhm.
I have a lot of faith and I know you're going to provide, but if you could just do that a little sooner than later, that'd be great.
That's real. I feel like most of us say that prayer.
Mhm.
So we only have less than a minute here left. A minute or so left, I should say. I get dramatic sometimes. What's next? What are you doing next? What's happening?
Staying present, staying in the community. What I guess I'm learning now is the importance. Like I said, time is so important. We're all given a limited amount of time. We're never, guaranteed our time on earth. So what do you do with your time? And I would like to be in a place where I can influence others to believe in themselves, empower them to do better things, know that they have a purpose, hopefully introduce them to Christ if I'm lucky enough, right? And have that connection, plant that seed a little bit, and keep giving my time and volunteering.
Time. A lot of that is based on time.
A lot of it is time. Absolutely.
So what is a piece of advice that you would give to a woman in the Great Lakes Bay region to empower them?
I say this often. You make a difference. You have a purpose. The things that you say matter. The things that you don't say matter. The things that you do matter. The things that you don't do matter. So get out there and make a difference. Believe in yourself. Have confidence. Right?
Hold your head high.
Hold your head high and keep going.
Eventually
You'll get past that survival phase and you'll get into that confidence phase where things will start to click. But always take stock and remember, your time is valuable. You are valuable. The time that you give is valuable.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing that piece of advice. That was Andrea Paschall, and we are on That's What She Said. And you know what, guys? That's what she said. Tune in next time. Thank you.